Hello, and welcome back to Faces of Truth, where we attempt to help Americans think for themselves again, and in the process, spread truth throughout the minds of humanity. My name is Alexander McCauley. I'll be your host for the next few minutes. Today, I kind of wanted to touch on how contemporary climate policy actually pushes us towards ecologically detrimental measures, even though it's claiming that it's trying to keep us from damaging the environment. This is an interesting idea because it tells us that our government is literally one big oxymoron. It says it's doing one thing, and then it's doing another. Now, in the next presentation, I'm going to be talking about how, well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Environmental policy is actually considering putting us back into an ice age. Ice ages are periods of time where deserts expand, glaciers expand, the equator becomes the only cultivatable land on Earth. In other words, scarcity prevails on the planet in an ice age. When things warm up, more land becomes arable because more resources can spread more evenly across the face of the Earth. Present climate policy wishes to push us back into an ice age. In ice ages, we also get an explosion of deficiencies which exacerbate infections, which is basically dying tissue. Extinctions are more prevalent inside ice ages than they are in warming trends. So, I read an article by I forgot what his name was, but he was calling out climate alarmists, the people that were talking about an apocalyptic end to the world if we didn't change our stance in the climate arena soon. We'll all be dead in 12 years, etc., etc. The thing is, these people reduce the credibility of legitimate climate science. Well, legitimate environmental science. The journalist said that, or gave the example of koalas. In 2019, when the article was written, koalas were said to be going extinct because of the wildfires burning down habitat. But the Earth, he points out that Earth could warm and koalas still survive as a species, but it could cool off and koalas go extinct. The thing is, we don't need, his point is, we don't need to be obsessing over carbon dioxide emission. We need to be considering the habitat of the species in consideration. Now, a lot of habitat around the world is cleared to make way for structures, artificial structures built by humans. This doesn't make humans criminals. However, we do need to think of how we individually use the land so that habitat for our responsibilities remains intact. I think Walt Disney, when he was he was designing Disney World, tried to integrate this type of thinking in something that he called green belting. In other words, any empty space in a city where you could put trees and gardens, etc., you did it so that the empty space could be productive, shelter animals, etc., etc., be habitat. We don't need to be predatory to our fellow creatures here on earth. God gave them to us as a responsibility, and to make use of as we could. However, when government steps in to do this, take this responsibility for us, they reduce our ability to use resources, including property, and they increase particulates into the atmosphere that would block sunlight, etc. And eventually, the climate policy right now would throw us back into an ice age. Inside the climate executive order that President Biden just signed, there is I guess you could call it a doctrine or a provision that is called the 30 by 30 provision. Basically, it calls for 30% of all property within the United States has to be federally managed by 2030. So, even if it's privately owned, you will have an inspector from the federal government breathing down your neck at all times to make sure that you are complying. This is an infringement on the right to private property. If I were to go over to a neighbor and say, okay, I maintain control over 30% of your property by 2030, the guy has, or my neighbor has total privilege to tell me to go take a hike. Because I don't have the power to do that. I can't take responsibility for 30% of my neighbor's property. We can only delegate to government the powers that we ourselves as citizens have. And when they presume to do things we can't do ourselves, we need to call them out for it and make sure that our rights are protected. We are the fourth check and balance in the United States, the citizen. And where we go, where we relinquish our responsibility, we end up being dictated by tyrants. Thank you for watching. This has been Faces of Truth, where we attempt to help Americans think for themselves again, and in the process, bring truth to the minds of humanity. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, comment, share, and stay free.